Hi, I'm Patrick Johnson, and this is Behind the Screen, where I take you behind the screen of my campaign, The Five Kingdoms. Now, when last we left our heroes, they were fighting off the undead, skeletons to be exact. And after they had finished that battle and gone to sleep, Jeff wakes up to find himself in his own bed, urgent knocking on the door. All his friends are outside, and they're trying to wake him up because the city is on fire. The orcs have invaded. They've taken over Castle Donegal, and the south side of the city is completely ablaze, and orcs are infiltrating, and they need to get out of the city as fast as they can. Now, it should be said, this was not my original plan. I originally thought that the players would explore the dungeons below Donegal Castle. They would notice the army down below and would find some inventive way to go around the army and figure out what was going on. So I had this whole dungeon crawl down below all planned out. But of course, because one of the orcs got away from their last battle, things turned slightly, and now the orcs have decided that they needed to attack immediately, or else lose the advantage of surprise. So they came up down from down below overnight and have attacked the city, and now Simon and Jeff and Winston and everybody, they all have to get out of the city. So they're coming. They got Jeff and woke him up. Now again, just like with everything else, I don't really have control over the players. I can kind of lead them in a direction with what happens. And I do kind of force them to go out the north gate. No, I don't force them, but that's the logical direction to go. And they end up going out the north gate. But from there, they can go any direction they want. Now, I do have it planned out for some encounters as they go farther north, and perhaps they can end up finding their way down into the dungeons that I originally had them going through from down below. But they don't do that. They decide to turn and go south, which players can do. So they go south and they figure out how the city got attacked. They see that the city walls were melted on the south side of the city. They don't know exactly why, but they can see a path of the orc destruction all the way up and to that point as it circles around the south side of the city and then over to the river, and then they find the hole in the riverbank right under their noses of the castle where more of the orcs came out overnight and ended up invading the city from. Now, the players decide to go down into this hole in the riverbank that they find and see where it leads. And after much scrabbling and clawing on their way down, they find that it leads to the room where they almost got killed, where that pool of water was they fell into from above. There's a couple of tunnels up in the wall that go off of there, and one of them leads to the surface there. So at this point, I'm thinking maybe they'll actually follow this out, and now that the orcs are gone out of here, there's mostly just some stragglers left behind. They might actually go through the original dungeon crawl that I had set up. But no, once they get to that point where they recognize where they're at, they decide right back up they go, out the riverbank side and back around and up to the north side of the city, which, as I recall, was where they rested at. I could be wrong about that, but in any case, at one point while they're on the north side of the city, they see a little procession come out of the north gate. Now that the orcs have taken over the whole city, there's a procession. A very big orc, presumably the chief of the tribe, comes walking out all confident with a little group following behind him, including one small little, presumably orc child, carrying a large stone tablet. And he does this little progression, walks out, turns around, walks back in, and then he goes up into the tower for the north gate. And he gets to the top and he stands there and he gets the tablet and he starts reading from the tablet. Now, the players don't know Orcish, but even though they can't speak Orcish, they can kind of gather a little bit about what's going on just by the tone of the chieftain's voice and the fact that all the orcs gathering down below respond to it. But they have no idea what he's saying. So they hear some Orcish. The guy says a few things. They respond. He says a few more things. They respond, and so on for a little bit. And then he hands the tablet back down to the little orc, and back down they go into the city, and they disappear. Now, because the players don't know Orcish, none of them took Orcish, and they don't know what was said, they're missing somewhat of a big clue here. That is one of the two tablets that has the prophecy on it for the orcs. And it's a prophecy that the elven high priestess planted for them to get them to do what needs to be done at this time. And so missing one of the tablets is important. They get to clearly see here that the orcs have one big tablet. There's a couple other places during the campaign where they get a reference to two tablets being moved from the orcs' old homeworld to the new homeworld. And here they see one orc tablet. So chance that they could, put two and two together, but it's just a small clue. And to my, as far as I could see, it didn't seem like they grasped what was going on there. But that was important. Now, it should also be noted that the fact that the players got to see that the south wall of the city was melted, it looked like the stone had become molten and created a breach in the wall structure, was also important. Again, the players don't know exactly why, but depending on what happens with the orcs, depending on whether the orcs get the other piece of the tablet of their prophecy and start to do what they're supposed to do, or whether they do what they think they're supposed to do and just try and conquer mankind. It's going to make a big difference on whether that little clue is important. The orcs, I don't know if I mentioned it yet or not, or if I mentioned it in a video further on, but the orcs have there's a set of orcs that have been trained to be around lava and to be able to take these big spoons, these big metal spoons, and lob like a bucket full of lava at a wall structure, at a door, various other things where this would be effective. And it actually is hot enough, it will melt stone if they get enough of it on there. So they'll have like a little squad of lava lobbers that will go up and throw it at the wall and get the wall to melt. Lastly, in this session, the players finally decide to head north. They head north overland and have a few encounters along the way, and then finally at the end of the session, they find an old wizard's tower. I tried to make it a little enticing, old wizard's tower, look out, you got to check this place out. And they did. So they went and they looked inside, and they find out that there's several subterranean levels of the wizard's tower until finally they get down below, back down into the last little bit of the dungeon crawl that I had set up for them. Again, didn't force them to go down there, just enticed them a little bit. They made their way down there, and then they started going down the area that I had originally developed. But that was about the end of the session. Now, coming up, I know though, this leads to an area where there's a beholder's lair. It's important that they go through it because there's a whole bunch of clues at the bottom of it, but it's a beholder's lair. They're really not high enough level to be handling a beholder's lair. Nonetheless, I wanted to see how it would work out. I got a few little tricks up my sleeve that may make it so it's possible for them to get through it without completely dying or getting petrified or disintegrated or whatever. And we'll see if that works out. And then also, the other group that they just played for the first time is going to the Necromancer's Lair, which is another possible TPK area for the party that they have to be careful about. I'm not a big believer as a dungeon master in putting everything that the players face at exactly the level that they can just go through and mosh through it and everything's fine. I throw a few things at them every once in a while that's beyond what they should be able to be capable of, either to see if they can do it or teach them that, it's a dangerous world out there. You have to be careful. You can't assume that everything's going to be fine and dandy. In any case, both those encounters are coming up, so we'll see how that turns out. Other than that, that's about it for this session. Another short one. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time on Behind the Screen.